So today we are going to be comparing Earth to Mars. We can see some similarities and differences. And while I have this going, I'm going to be playing some images taken by the Mars rover. So, at one point in time, people were actually very confused about what Mars looked like. You may see some old drawings from the past where Mars was covered in rivers and very green, but that was proven false fairly early on. We've learned a lot about Mars recently, and we have found that it actually is pretty dry, but also not as dead as it looks, not as big and deserty as it looks. Let's just get into it, comparing the two. So, there is a difference between size and mass. Size is how big something physically is, and mass is how much stuff it has in it. Depending on the density, meaning how much stuff is in a given space, you might have two planets that are the same size with different masses. And remember, yesterday we talked about the more mass something has, the more gravity it has. So when we look, Earth and Mars are very different as far as their mass goes. Mars is approximately half of Earth's mass, approximately half of Earth's size, but because it does not have the same density of materials, it is only 15% of Earth's density. So gravity is quite a bit different between Earth and Mars. Earth's year is 365 days. Mars's year is not quite double that at 687 days. The Martian day, however, is fairly similar to Earth's day. The Martian day is about 20 hours, whereas Earth's day is 24 hours. So if you look at the orbits, Mars has a much bigger orbit, which would mean that its seasons, and yes, it does have seasons, last a good bit longer. Its distance from the sun is very different. Earth is actually much closer to the sun than Mars. There is a real difference in their rotations about its axis. I said that already. Mars's is 24 hours. I'm sorry, Mars's is longer. Mars's actual day is about 25 hours, whereas Earth's is 24. So that would be kind of nice. Talking about why they have different masses. So Earth and Mars have similar masses when we're talking similar basic makeups. Neither is made of gas. They are both made of rock. They both have a metallic core in the middle, an overlying mantle with a crust of less dense metals. However, Mars's core has much lighter elements than Earth. Earth's core is made of iron. Mars's current core suggested is a bit smaller, made mostly of iron and nickel, so that it is lighter. Both planets have mantles. There's my alarm telling me it's 6:30. Mars's mantle is much thinner than Earth's mantle, right? Believed to be composed of rocks with lots of minerals, compared to the crust, which if you look at the images on your screen is rather red and not particularly nutrient dense. The crust is much, much thicker, and because the crust is made of on Mars, and because the crust is made of much lighter elements than the core and the mantle, this sort of accounts for why Mars has so much less density, and as a result, so much less gravity. So, when you look at the surface features, if you've been watching the images, Mars kind of looks like a desert. The Earth has far more surface features, far more variety of surface features. Mars is pretty much just red. The surface of Mars is dry and dusty. that dust is full of rust, iron rust. Large concentrations of water, however, are known to exist in the polar ice caps of Mars, much like Earth. In addition, there is permafrost, permanently frozen ice, on a good deal of the upper and lower, near the caps, that has made its way because they stay very cold. We do both Earth and Mars has a lot of different geography. If you're looking, lots of mountains, valleys, different plateaus, deserts, plains, and landforms. Both planets get hit by asteroids and meteors, but because Mars does not have the same atmosphere that we have, that we learned about, more meteors make it to the surface and make it much more crater heavy, I'll say, for lack of a better word. So if we're going to talk about the differences in atmosphere and temperature, they are very different. All right, Earth has one atmosphere. We talked about that. So the atmospheric pressure is 1, where Mars' atmosphere is very thin. It's about 1% of Earth's atmosphere where we live. So it's a big difference, 99% difference. Earth's atmosphere is mainly full of nitrogen and has water vapor, carbon dioxide, and other gases. Mars's atmosphere is 96% carbon dioxide, 2% argon, about 2% nitrogen, and some other little traces. So very, very different from ours. We only have traces of carbon dioxide. Most of Mars's atmosphere is carbon dioxide. Recent surveys have noticed some methane in the Martian atmosphere as well. Because of the differences in atmospheres, carbon dioxide as opposed to nitrogen and oxygen, Mars is much hotter. The hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth was about 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and the coldest was negative 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Whereas on Mars, the average temperature at night on Mars is negative 51 degrees. But Mars has a significant amount of variation in their temperature. So, trying to get more images. Mars has a significant variation in its temperatures. It does not, where is it? The low temperature on Mars, average low temperature is about negative 225 degrees Fahrenheit during the winter, and 95 degrees Fahrenheit during the summer. Mars is pretty dusty. We've seen that. We get lots of dust storms. Earth has a much denser atmosphere with oxygen and water, and Mars is dry, cold, and can be warm. We are similar, but Mars is much colder, generally speaking. So, Earth has a pretty strong magnetic field. Mars does not. Earth has this, and the interesting part about that is the magnetic field of Earth is the reason that we block out a lot of the sun's rays. It kind of shields us from very intense solar radiation that Mars gets full blast, right? So the reason that scientists think this is because Mars's core is a lot smaller and has less iron in it. Iron can be used to induce a magnetic field, and because the magnetic field around Earth deflects a lot of that solar radiation, we've been able to evolve. Mars hasn't had that. The surface of Mars is pretty much cooked by the sun all the time, even though it's further away. And if we were going to try and go there, this would be a big thing to try and overcome, with and including the carbon dioxide process. So, well, we'll talk about what these things mean, but that is a brief overview of the differences between Mars and Earth.